Hello my dear students, তোমাদের সবাইকে welcome. So today we are discuss the most important chapter control and coordination from CBSE Class 10. তোমাদের বোর্ড এক্সামের জন্য আমি এনসিইআরটি বেস কিছু কোশ্চেন অ্যান্সার ডিসকাস করব এন্ড তার থেকে মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট কিছু সাজেশন দিয়ে দেব যে কোশ্চেনগুলো এই বছর বোর্ড এক্সামের জন্য খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট। চলে এসো তোমরা সবাই, যারা যারা এখন ক্লাসে আছো তারা একটুখানি আমাকে হাই মেসেজ পাঠিয়ে দাও, আমি দেখে নিই কারা কারা তোমরা এই মুহূর্তে ক্লাসে আছো। চলো আজকে আমরা তোমাদের জন্য যে মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট চ্যাপ্টারটাকে নিয়ে ডিসকাস করতে চলেছি সেটা হচ্ছে কন্ট্রোল অ্যান্ড কোঅর্ডিনেশন ইন প্ল্যান্টস অ্যান্ড অ্যানিমালস। এটা আমরা সিবিএসই ক্লাস 10 থেকে আমরা এই ক্লাসটা ডিসকাস করব আজকে। কিছু মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট কিছু কোশ্চেন অ্যান্সার যেটা তোমাদের জানা উচিত তোমাদের বোর্ড এক্সামের আগে। তাহলে চলে আসো আমরা এই কোশ্চেন অ্যান্সার গুলোকে ডিসকাস করতে থাকি তোমাদের জন্য। তাহলে ফার্স্ট যে কোশ্চেনটা নিয়ে আজকে আমরা ডিসকাস করব, দেখো which of the following is a plant hormone? দেখো insulin, no, this is not the plant hormone. Thyroxine, no. The estrogen, no. So cytokinin are the plant hormone. You know, the cytokinin is the most important plant hormone. This help to cell division of the plant. Question number 2. Question number 2 চলো এবার আমরা ডিসকাস করি। Okay, the gap between the two neurons. টু নিউরনস, তার মধ্যে যে গ্যাপটা থাকে না তাকে কি বলে? দ্য গ্যাপ বিটুইন দ্য টু নিউরনস ইজ কল্ড দ্য সাইন্যাপস। এটা ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট কোশ্চেন এন্ড এটা তোমার একটা সাজেশনের মধ্যেও থাকলো। তাহলে সাইন্যাপস ইট ইজ আ গ্যাপ বিটুইন দ্য টু নিউরনস, এটা ভালো করে মাথায় রাখো। নাও চলে আসো আমরা কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 3। দ্য ব্রেন ultimately responsible for, so what is the function of the brain? Right, so the brain are help to thinking and regulating the heartbeat, also the balancing the body. So the all of this option is the right option. So D is the right option for that particular question. Brain are ultimately help to all this type of function right now, right? তাহলে এই হয়ে গেল আমাদের কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 3। তাহলে এবার আমি যে কোশ্চেনটা তোমাদের জন্য ডিসকাস করতে চলেছি সেইটা হচ্ছে what is the function of the receptor in our body? Think of a situation where the receptor do not work properly. So what happened unlikely to arise? Receptor, what is the receptor? Receptor ultimately the sensory structure that is sometimes like organ like tissues that is present all over the body, right? This receptor are ultimately present in our eye, like here, all like the sense organ. Also in the skin, the most important sensory structure is there. So what is the function of the receptor? The most important function is that they sense the external stimulus such as heat or the pain, and they also trigger an impulse in the sensory neuron which send a message to the spinal cord or the CNS. তাহলে দেখো সে আলটিমেটলি একটা কি করছে, এক্সটার্নাল স্টিমুলাসকে সেন্স করছে। Another important function, they ultimately send a impulse to our brain or the spinal cord, that means to the CNS. This is the function of the receptor. So when the receptor are damaged, so what is happening now? The external stimuli ultimately transferring signal to the brain are not felt. That time we are not aware in our environment. Suppose I give an example. In case of damaged receptor, if we accidentally touch any hot object, then our hands might get burned as damage. Receptor cannot perceive any external stimulus of heat and pain. They cannot feel it. Right? So this is the important consequence may be happening if the damage happen in the receptors. Very important question. Next question, draw the structure of the neuron and explain its function. Neuron, you already know that functional unit of the nervous system. The three most important part is there. There is a cell body, this is the dendrites and the axon. Right, তোমরা এগুলো মেনশন করবে and এই পিকচারটা কিন্তু ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট সাজেশন কোশ্চেনের মধ্যে আসছে, মানে মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট কোশ্চেন ফর ইওর বোর্ড এক্সাম। বাট এটা তো একটা পিকচার হলো, কোশ্চেনটা কি ছিল? Ultimately draw the structure of the neuron and explain its function. তাহলে আমাদের এখন এক্সপ্লেন করা হয়নি, কিন্তু এবার এক্সপ্লেন করতে হবে আমাদেরকে। কি এক্সপ্লেন করবে? The axon. What is the function of the axon? সেটা আবার তোমাকে তো বলতে হবে। Axon is a function, it conduct the message away from the cell body. Dendrite, what is their function? They receive the information from the axon of another cell and conduct the message towards the cell body. This is the most important function, conduct the message towards the cell body. And third important part of the neuron is the cell body. It contains the nucleus, mitochondria and other organelles also be there in that particular portion, and it is mainly concerned with the maintenance and the growth of this particular cell. So this is the three important region is there in the neuron, right? I discussed the function of axon, dendrite and cell body also. Clear? Next question দেখো, next question যেটা আসছে সেটা হচ্ছে how does the phototropism occur in the plants? Phototropism, ব্যাপারটা photo means light আর tropism আসছে tropic movement থেকে। So in here the movement of plant responds to light, that time it is called the phototropism. You know the stem, they show the positive phototropism. When you know the any plant detect the light, a hormone called auxin are synthesized at the shoot tip. This is help to grow longer. When the light is coming from one side, that time ultimately the plant part also bend towards this side, and ultimately the concentration of action stimulates the cell to grow longer on the side of the shoot. For that reason the shoot ultimately bent up like this portion due to the function of the auxin. So photoreceptor, this phenomenon are happening due to the auxin hormone. Clear? এই ব্যাপারটা কিন্তু একটু ভালো করে মাথায় রাখবে। নেক্সট কোশ্চেনটা নিয়ে ডিসকাস করি দেখো, which signal will get disrupt in case of any spinal cord injury? That means what is the function of the spinal cord that is ultimately disrupted? You know the reflex arc. Reflex arc ultimately connection between the input and output of the nerve need to handle but by the it is ultimately bundle of the spinal cord are involved. But in any time if the injury are happening the spinal cord, that means the signal coming from the nerve as well as the signals coming from the receptor will be disrupted. So like the circuit, it ultimately disrupted, so our coordination are not work properly. Here this is the, because you know the spinal cord at the CNS or the central nervous system. Next question, how does the chemical coordination occur in plants? You know the animals have a nervous system for controlling and coordinating activities of the body, but plants have neither a nervous system nor a muscles, right? So how they ultimately coordinate? Plant responds to a stimulus by the showing the movement, the growth, the development, and response to the environment. Plant is controlled and coordinated by a special class of chemical substance known as the plant hormones. These plant hormones are produced in one part of the plant body and then translocated other parts, right? For example, একটা এক্সাম্পল দিতে হবে তোমাকে, a hormone produced in the root is translocated to other parts when where that is required. And you know the five major type of phytohormones or plant hormone is there. That is the auxin, gibberellins, cytokinin, abscisic acid, and the ethylene. These phytohormones are either growth promoters like auxin, gibberellins, and cytokines and ethylene, and sometimes they are inhibits the growth. Example of the acid which is inhibit the growth, it is the abscisic acid. বুঝা গেল? Next question, what is need for system of control and coordination of an organism? দেখো, what is the need for a system of control and coordination? The maintenance of our body function is response to change in the body by working together in the various integrated body system, that is called the coordination. All the movements that occur in response to stimulus carefully coordinated and controlled. You know that in animals the control and coordination movement are provided by the neurons and the muscular system. The nervous system is there. Nervous system ultimately send the message, and away from the brain and the spinal cord play the important role to relay the message. For example, you know, when accidentally touch a hot any hot object, you immediately withdraw our hand. In absence of the nerve transmission, we will not withdraw our hand and may get burned. So nervous system is most important part in our body. Without it we cannot survive. Clear? So this is the important. Next question চলো আমরা যেটা ডিসকাস করব, how are involuntary action and reflex actions are different from each other? Involuntary actions cannot be consciously controlled. Automatically it is happening. For example, we cannot consciously control the movement of food in the alimentary canal. এলিমেন্টারি ক্যানেলের থ্রু দিয়ে যখন ফুডটা পাস অন করে তখন কি আমরা কন্ট্রোল করতে পারবো, স্টপ করতে পারবো না। দিস অ্যাকশন আর হাউএভার ডাইরেক্টলি আন্ডার দ্য কন্ট্রোল অফ দ্য ব্রেন। যদি আমরা রিফ্লেক্স অ্যাকশনটাকে বলি, রিফ্লেক্স অ্যাকশন সাচ লাইক ক্লোজিং অফ দ্য আইজ ইমিডিয়েটলি when in the bright light are focused, they should suddenly respond and do not involve any thinking. This means the unlikely involuntary action, reflex action are not under the control of our brain, right? It is our very fast action also. This is the difference between the reflex action and involuntary action. Next question, the compare and contrast nervous and the humoral mechanism for control and coordination in animals. The nervous system, the information is ultimately conveyed in the form of electrical impulse. Hormonal system ultimately involved by the chemical messengers. The axon and dendrite transmit the information through a coordinated effort. On the hormonal system, the information is transmitted or transported through the blood. The flow of the information is very rapid and response are very quick. On the other hand, hormonal system, their mechanism are comparatively slow process. And the nervous system, their effect are short life. On the other hand, the hormonal system, their mechanism are prolonged effect. It has the prolonged effect. তাহলে এই ডিফারেন্স গুলো কিন্তু খুব ভালো করে মাথায় রাখবে, আর এই কোশ্চেনটা আমি তোমাদের সাজেশনের কোশ্চেনেও দিয়ে দিচ্ছি, ভালো করে মাথায় নিয়ে নাও। নেক্সট কোশ্চেন, হোয়াট ইজ দ্য ডিফারেন্স বিটুইন দ্য ম্যানার ইন হুইচ movement takes place in sensitive plant and movement in our legs? Movement in sensitive plant and movement in our legs. So what is the difference between? Number one, the movement that takes place in sensitive plant like the Mimosa pudica in response to touch or any stimulus. On the other hand, the movement of our legs is an example of voluntary action. And Mimosa pudica and their response is like very automatically it is happening when any touch are happening in their leaves. For the movement of sensitive plant, the information are transmitted from cell to cell by the electrochemical signal. As plants do not have any specialized tissue for coordination or conduction of the impulse, on the other hand, the movement in our legs, that time the signal or message for this action are passed to brain and his are ultimately consciously controlled. Movement in sensitive plant ultimately the occur. The plant cell change their shape, changing in the amount of water in them. This is the principle that is work behind the movement in the sensitive plant. On the other hand, the movement in our legs, in animals' muscle cells, some proteins are found which allow the movement to occur. This is the most important difference. একটু মাথায় রেখে দিও। Next question দেখো। Next question, what is the difference between reflex action and the walking? Reflex action, I already tell you that it is a very rapid automatic response to a stimulus and it does not involve any thinking. Example, like we close our eyes immediately when the bright light are focused in your eye. On the other hand, the walking, on the other hand, is a voluntary action and it is under our conscious control, right? This is the most important differences there. Next question চলো আমরা ডিসকাস করি। What happened at the synapse between the two neurons? The two neurons are ultimately joined together, but a very small gap that occurs between the last portion of the action of one neuron and the dendrites of the another neuron. The junction is called the synapse, and it acts a way like for the transmit of the nerve impulse in the one direction. This one directional transfer of impulse, occur as a chemicals are produced in only one side of the neuron, that is in the presynaptic neurons. In the axon side, for action the impulse travels across the synapse to the dendrite of the another neuron. Neurotransmitter agents are involved in that particular type of the transmission of impulse between the synapse. So next question, which part of the brain maintain the posture and the equilibrium of the body? And very important question in the CBSE class 10. The cerebellum. Cerebellum, it is a part of the hind brain and it is their most function to maintaining the posture and equilibrium of the body. So what is the function of the cerebellum? It is the most important part, কিন্তু এটা মনে রাখতে হবে তোমাকে। Next question দেখো, question number 4 আসছে, how do you detect the smell of any agarbatti or incense stick? আমরা কিভাবে আমরা আগরবাতি কোনো সেন্স বা স্মেলকে ডিটেক্ট করতে পারি? What is the science behind it? The thinking part of our brain is the forebrain, right? It has a separate area that are specialized for smelling, sight, taste, touch. All is the different specialized sight. And the forebrain also has a region that collect the impulse from the various receptor. When a smell of any agarbatti sticks reach to us, our forebrain detect it. Then the forebrain ultimately interprets by it putting together with the information received from other receptor. Like this smell is very good or not, this is ultimately happening due to the brain action, right? Next question দেখো, what is the role of the brain in the reflex action? The reflex action, it is a very sudden response which do not involve any thinking. For example, when we touch any hot object, we withdraw our hand immediately without any thinking. as thinking may take time, which is ultimately would be enough to get us burned. So this action is very fast. The sensory nerve that detects the heat are connected to the nerve, move to the muscles, to the hand. So they are very fast action. That is a reflex action. Clear? এর জন্য তোমরা এই পাথওয়েটার কথা মাথায় রাখবে। দিস ওয়ান ইজ কল্ড দ্য রিফ্লেক্স আর্ক, যার মধ্যে কোন কোন পার্টগুলো আসছে, যার মধ্যে রিসেপ্টর আসছে, সেন্সরি নিউরনস আসছে, দেখো রিলে নিউরনস আসছে, এফেক্টর আসছে, and it is the motor neurons আসছে। This is the 1, second part, third part, fourth part, and the fifth part. This is the pathway, and this is called the reflex arc. Reflex arc are formed in the spinal cord, and the information reach to the brain. The brain are only the away from the signal and the response that has been taken place. এটা মনে রাখবে একটু। Next question দেখো, what are the plant hormones? Plant hormones, also it is called the phytohormone. Right, actually it is a organic substance, and these are synthesized in the one part of the plant body and then translocated other plant where it is required. The 5 major type of plant hormones or phytohormones are auxin, gibberellins, cytokinins, abscisic acid, and ethylene is there. And what is the function of gibberellins? Gibberellins are help to growth of the stem. Auxin are help in the growth of the stem also. Cytokinin promote the cell division, also it is help in the growth of the plant. Abscisic acid are the one example of hormone which inhibit the growth, not the accelerated the growth. এই ফাংশন গুলো একটু মনে রাখতে হবে তোমাকে। Next question, how is the movement of leaves of sensitive plant different from movement of a shoot towards the light? That means in here we are given the two examples. One is the nastic movement, another one is the tropic movement. This is the two type of movement in here we are discussed. First of one, the movement of leaves of the sensitive plant like Mimosa pudica or touchment of plant occurs to response to a touch or contact to stimulus. This is called the nastic movement. This is done by the plant cell changing the amount of water in the leaves. This movement is independent of the growth and independent of the direction of the stimulus. On the other hand, the movement of shoot towards the light is called the phototropism. It is a tropic movement. In here, direction of the stimulus take the very important role. Right? First one is the example of nastic movement, and second one is the example of tropic movement. Clear? এই ব্যাপারটা কিন্তু মাথায় রেখো ভালো করে। Give an example of a plant hormone that promotes the growth. প্ল্যান্টের গ্রোথকে প্রমোট করে which হরমোনস গুলো আছে সেগুলো একটু আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে। দেখো, give an example of plant hormone that promote the growth, that is the gibberellins, auxin, and the cytokinins. This is the three important hormone which is help the plant growth. Next question, how do auxins promote the growth of a tendril around a support? একটা tendril growth করছে around a support, but how the auxin promote the growth? Those ultimately tendrils are very sensitive to touch. When they are come in contact with any support, that time auxin, it is a growth hormone diffused from the part of the tendril in contact with the object to other side, which is not in the contact. Therefore, the part of the tendril in the contact with the object does not grow as rapidly as the part of the tendril away from the object. Their growth rate is more faster. This causes the tendril ultimately circle around the object and thus ultimately going to it. Clear হলো ব্যাপারটা? এটা ভালো করে মাথায় রাখো। Next question, design experiment demonstrate the hydrotropism. Hydro means the water. That time you take some small beakers, the label A and B, beaker A and beaker B. and A and B fill the beaker A with water. Now make a cylindrical shaped roll from the filter paper and keep it a breach between the beaker A and B. Attach few germinating seed in the middle of this paper breach. Now ultimately cover entire setup in a transparent plastic container so that moisture is returned. After that, you observe the roots of germinating seeds will grow towards the beaker A. Why? Because in that particular region the water is there and roots are moved towards the water source, and it is the hydrotropism, and it's particular this experiment it is proved. Next question देखो. How does the chemical coordination takes place in the animals? Chemical coordination takes place in the animal with the help of the hormones. Hormones are the chemical messenger that regulate the all physiological process in the living beings. It's secreted, hormones are from where it is secreted? It is secreted from the glands, and regulate of the any physiological process and control and coordination by the hormones ultimately comes under the endocrine system. Next question देखो. Why is the use of iodized salt is advisable? আমরা যে সল্টটা ইট করি that is must be iodized. But why? Because the iodine stimulates the thyroid gland and to produce the thyroxine hormone. It regulates the carbohydrate, fat and protein metabolism in our body. So this is the most important hormone. Deficiency of this hormone result in the enlargement of the thyroid gland. This can lead to the goiter. It is a disease characteristic by the swollen neck. Therefore, iodized salt is advised for the normal functioning of the thyroid gland. এটা ভালো কোশ্চেন, একটা মনে রেখো কিন্তু। নেক্সট কোশ্চেনটা দেখো, how does our body respond when the adrenaline is secreted into the blood? The adrenaline, these hormones are secreted from the adrenal glands, right? In case of any danger or emergency, that time these hormones are secreted. It is secreted directly into the blood and transported different parts of our body. When secreted a large amount, it speed up the heartbeat, and the supply of oxygen in the muscle is much more. The breathing rate also will increase due to the contraction of the diaphragm and the rib muscles. It also increases the blood pressure. All these responses are enable the body to deal with any stress or emergency. সেটাকে কোপ আপ করবার জন্য এটা আলটিমেটলি সিক্রেট হয়। লাস্ট কোশ্চেন দেখো, why are some patients of diabetes treated by giving injection of insulin? Diabetes এই ডিজিজটা কেন হয়? Which the level of sugar in the blood is too high. Insulin is a hormone which is secreted by the pancreas, and it is help to regulating the blood sugar level. And in the diabetic person, the insulin level is ultimately low, so the diabetes are happening. So this is the reason why diabetic patients are treated with giving the injection of insulin, because insulin deficit is there, their secretion are ultimately hypo. So from outer side the insulin hormone are injected into the diabetic persons. So আমি তোমাকে এই মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট কিছু কোশ্চেন এনসিইআরটি বেস করে যেগুলো আমি ডিসকাস করে দিলাম, এই কোশ্চেনগুলোকে তুমি যদি তোমার এক্সামের আগে ভালো করে একবার শুনে নাও, রিভাইজ করে নাও, দেখবে তোমার ফুল চ্যাপ্টারটা অনেক কুইক তৈরি হয়ে গেল। সেই জন্যই সিবিএসই 10 স্টুডেন্টদের জন্য আমি এটা চেষ্টা করেছি। তোমাদের যদি ভালো লাগে লাইক করো আর বন্ধুদের মধ্যে শেয়ার করো, কারণ এটা সবার মধ্যে আমি এটাকে হেল্প করতে চাইছি, তোমার অল ফ্রেন্ডস যারা তোমার সিবিএসই বোর্ডে আছে। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। তোমরা ভালো থেকো আর মন দিয়ে পড়াশোনা করো।